Space Marine 2 came out recently, and a small group of friends, and even my wife and I, have been putting in a bit of a shift on that game. Some significantly more than others, although I won't name any names, Josh. And it got me thinking about this video because I think that there are a lot of similarities and links that can be drawn between having a level of success and enjoyment within your hobbies, whether that's video games, Warhammer or Dungeons and Dragons, and having a degree of success and enjoyment when it comes to your fitness, whether that's losing weight, building muscle, getting stronger, getting fitter, all that sort of stuff. Because it's kind of a similar process, and oftentimes it's the initial hurdles and the initial frustration that derail us. And I think that some of us experienced this initially with Space Marine 2. Some of us not so much, because we're sweaty, hardcore gamers who don't mind putting in seriously long shifts, sometimes at the detriment of our health and well-being. Again, not naming any names, Josh. And so if you are in any way invested in your hobbies, but you struggle with your fitness, I'm going to explain to you how you can just shift your mindset around this and see this as a game, see this as a process that you need to get through the initial stages. And for a lot of you who have played video games, who have hobbies, you know that the initial stages can be a bit of a grind. Space Marine 2 is not the easiest game in the world to pick up. There are certain reactions that you have to have in place. There are certain sequences. It's not just a button bashing game. And despite what I thought initially, and some of us thought initially, you can't just smash away at the buttons and hope to have any degree of success. It is quite a difficult game to pick up. And especially because on certain modes, you start with 0 equipment. And again, the same applies if you've played something like Dungeons and Dragons. You start at level 1, 2, or 3, you've got no good equipment. You've got no good abilities. You've barely got any health. And it's frustrating because you're getting killed or knocked out by goblins or giant rats. The same thing if you start playing something like Warhammer. You know, you're going to have no brushes, no paints, and you're going to see all these high level demonstrations. And it's going to be frustrating because you're not going to be there straight away. And the same thing happens with your fitness. You've got to go through that initial grind. You've got to be prepared to go through those initial stages where you're going to get frustrated, where you're going to get things wrong more than you get things right, where you're not going to see the progression that you want. And this happens all the time. But like I said, if you are into your hobbies in any way, you already know how to do this. Some of the guys that we play Space Marine 2 with are not experienced video gamers, and they aren't as natural as picking up video games as some of the others. And so it can be frustrating because you see some of the guys that we play with leveling up really quick, picking up the mechanics, picking up the game, getting better armor, getting better weapons, playing at higher difficulties, having more success, having more kills, all those sorts of things. And for the rest of us who aren't that good off the bat, we have to accept that we need to focus on the process and not the outcome. The outcome is your score, your equipment, your kit, feeling powerful. The process is playing the game, enjoying it, learning as you go, and accepting that you're not focused too much upon the outcome itself. You're focused on the process. The same with your Warhammer. The process is showing up, putting paint on the brush, and putting paint on the model, regardless of what the outcome is. The process of playing D&D to start with is showing up and giving it your best go, showing up consistently, paying attention, but not focusing too much upon the direct outcome. And the same thing applies with all of your fitness and training. When it comes to your diet, your weight loss goals, it is a case of it's a delayed response, let's put it that way. The stuff you do now isn't going to show for a couple of weeks, and that can be really difficult to wrap your head around. You can cut your calories back today. You can cut out alcohol. You can cut out chocolate. You're not going to notice a difference today or tomorrow. You might not even notice a difference next week. It's going to be a delayed process. The work you put in now, you will see in 2 or 3 weeks' time. And it's an even longer process when it comes to your training. If you want to get fitter, if you want to run a 5K, you can go out for a run today and tomorrow you'll feel sore and you'll feel tired. And you'll go and run in a couple of days' time and you will run the same, if not slower. It's not for a number of weeks until you see that progress, that you see the reward of the effort that you've put in. The same with your strength training. You go in the gym today for the first time in a while and you do some heavy bench press. You're going to go to the gym tomorrow and you would lift less weight. You're actively going to get weaker before you get stronger. And if you've got a big goal of I want to bench press 100 kilos or I want to deadlift 200 kilos, it's going to take a long time before you get there. And so you have to focus on the process. But the good thing is this: as with your hobbies, your video games, your Warhammer, your D&D, there is an initial learning curve where you're trying to learn how to do the exercises, how to manage your diet, how to train hard, how to control the weight. You're learning how to do all these things. But then once you've got that in place, once you've nailed it, the progress is probably a little bit quicker because you've got fewer things to worry about. When we're playing Space Marine 2, we're focusing on how do I get my parries right? How do I get my dodges right? How do I aim? What equipment do I want to use? But the more hours you put into it, the quicker you pick it up. And the quicker that becomes just, almost like subconscious. It just happens as a natural reaction, and then you can focus on the next step and the next level and the next game mechanic. And the same thing happens with your fitness. Initially, you're going to need to focus on a few things, a few fundamentals, and build on those. You're going to go in and you're going to put weight on the bar and go, okay, cool. I need to make sure I'm training through a full range of movement first. Regardless of what the weight is on the bar, I need to detach myself from how strong I want to be and just go, right, am I moving the bar through the range of movement that I need to? In a bench press, am I locking my arms out the top? And am I getting my bar or the bar to my chest, to my torso at the bottom position? Because if you're not doing that, then that's the first thing you need to fix. If you're doing bicep curls because you want to grow your biceps, you need to make sure that you're not swinging the weight and generating loads of momentum and cheating. Again, regardless of what the weight is. And then once you've got those fundamentals in place, you can move on to the next stage. Like I said, the initial stages of your hobbies and the initial stages of your training, of your nutrition, it's going to be a grind because you aren't going to see the return on your investment. You're going to log on to the game for the first couple of days and you're going to feel like turning it off and downloading it, undownloading it off of your system. You're going to feel like throwing your controller out the window because you mess up so many times. And you're not going to see that progress at all or barely at all. And you're going to feel super underpowered and it's going to be super frustrating. And the same thing happens with your training. You're going to see people on social media. You'll have people that you know, friends, family, who have trained for a while and they just seem to look at weights and get stronger. And they just seem to look at some vegetables and they get leaner. And it's because they've already gone through those initial stages where they're just grinding through that process. They get to a point where they start seeing results. And then the good thing is that once you get over those initial hurdles, once you get to that sort of almost like critical threshold, you start to see those results. And then they happen fairly consistently. With your diet, it's not unusual if you're eating well, if you're eating the right amount, to lose half a pound or a pound per week. But it might take a few weeks for that first pound to shift. But then once you're there, so long as you are consistent and you're eating the right amount, you can potentially see progress on a weekly basis. The same with your fitness. Once you get an initial base set with your running, with your conditioning, then it's not unusual to see small amounts of progress almost on a weekly basis, until you get to that really, really top level where progress slows down once again. And the same thing happens with your hobbies and your video games. You take a good amount of time just to grind through those early levels, to learn the mechanics, to get that initial get, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, hang on a minute, this is getting a bit more fun. My character's a bit more powerful. I'm getting a little bit further up the leaderboard. I'm playing at a higher difficulty. And then once you've generated that momentum, it's easier to keep it up. So the big message from me today is this. If you are starting your fitness journey again or for the first time, if you're looking to get leaner, get bigger, grow muscle, get stronger, improve your fitness times, you need to accept that initially it's going to be a bit of a grind and you need to detach yourself from the outcome and only focus on the process. And the process is showing up consistently, putting in as much effort as you can, adhering to a sensible, structured, personalized training plan, and just trusting in that process. And like I said, for some of you, it's going to take a couple of weeks and then you'll start seeing some of those returns on your investment of time and effort. For some of you, it's going to take longer. For some of you, it's going to feel like it's ages before you see any of that. It's going to be a month or two before your running times start improving. It's going to be a month or two before you start doing more push-ups or more chin-ups. It's going to be a month or two before you start putting more weight on the bar. And you've just got to grind through those initial stages. You've got to stick to the process. You've got to try your best, and you've got to show up consistently. And you've got to go into it accepting that it's going to be a bit frustrating and potentially a bit disappointing to begin with. But the difference is making it through those early levels, grinding through level 1 and level 2 and level 3. Because once you get over that hump, once you get past that critical threshold, you will start to see, like I keep saying, that return upon your investment of time and effort. And that's when the motivation comes, because you'll start enjoying it. You'll see your gym numbers go up. You'll see the scale weight drop down. You'll see, I've got a scale there. You'll see the scale weight drop down. You'll see the inches around your waist start to decrease. Lots of hand gestures going on. And that is where the enjoyment comes from, and that's where the motivation comes from, and that's where you start seeing the outcome of all of the effort you put in. But to start with, treat it like a video game. Treat it like a hobby. Treat it like all the other things that you've done successfully and that you've enjoyed, and just go in preparing to grind through those initial stages. And if you can do that, then you will get to whatever your goal is in the end. But sometimes you just got to knuckle down and you just got to get on with it. And if in doubt, you just got to put in twice as many hours as everyone else, just like Josh Taylor did.